My name is Gwen Schwartz, and I'm here doing my presentation for my statistics course at Carson Newman. I've been graciously invited my two colleagues, Ms. Laura and Mrs. Phillips, who are here with me, and they are here to listen to my presentation on the Mozart Effect. The title of my presentation is The Mozart Effect and Multiplication Fact Assessments. What the Mozart Effect is the idea that listening to certain Mozart music will increase IQ scores for certain situations. There's been a growing number of collection of research that suggests that there are benefits to listening to certain types of music, Mozart being the most common. Rosher, Shaw, and Kai found that there were temporary increases to students' ability to visualize spatial patterns and to mentally manipulate those after listening to Mozart music. So what that means is that they showed or had students listen to Mozart music, and then they gave them a task where they were to fold some paper, and they were able to do it better after listening to the Mozart music. There, of course, needs to be ongoing investigations into this because it is only a possible phenomenon that has been discovered, and in fact the researchers themselves have invited people to do further demonstrations and research. So this is my research proposal that would add to the growing base of knowledge. So researchers are kind of divided into two different categories, one of them being educational researchers and one of them being psychological in the field of psychology and things. And they have both been doing research to support or refute the idea of the Mozart effect. There have been lots of research that has been done that has been able to replicate the effects of the Mozart effect, but others have failed to find the same results. There's been a number of studies that have attempted to replicate the original study with just a few variations, and they have found similar results, and then there have been other people who have done it and not found the same results. So this would indicate that there would be a reason to continue studying the Mozart effect to see if it really does actually in fact increase IQ scores. Neuropsychologists are on the other spectrum, and they say that it is absolutely impossible for listening to music to affect IQ scores because the part of your brain that associates the music is not connected to the part of the brain that determines IQ. So they said that physiologically it is impossible to happen, but there have been research that shows that it can happen. For my particular study, I will be studying math fact fluency. Math fact fluency is the ability to quickly answer basic math facts. And this is a skill that is needed because future understanding of achievement in mathematics is dependent upon being able to answer these questions very quickly when you get into deeper levels of computation. So this study that I am presenting would add to the growing amount of knowledge already available, and it would attempt to answer yet again whether or not the Mozart effect actually does exist. So my research question is there a Mozart effect for third grade students taking multiplication fact time assessments? The premise of this study is that listening to Mozart music has shown a positive effect or correlation in increasing IQ scores for spatial reasoning tasks. That was the first research that has been done. And then there's been other research that indicates that spatial reasoning has been connected to numeric reasoning. So therefore it stands to reason that one might find a correlation between Mozart music and the ability to form on a multiplication math fact computation assessment, which is in fact a numeric assessment. So the idea is that listening to Mozart music was able to increase the spatial IQ, the folding of the paper, for the students in the first assessment, but spatial reasoning is connected to numeric reasoning, being able to computate simple math problems. So I would think that listening to Mozart music may increase the ability to perform on math assessments. For this study, there's some operational definitions that need to be quickly gone over. Math fact fluency is how quickly a student can correctly answer a set of math problems. And for this particular experiment, I'll be using Rocket Math. Rocket Math is a program which students learn the basic math skills of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. For this study, I'll only be using the multiplication facts with third grade students. Students will progress using the Rocket Math program through a series of 26 lessons. They do this by a daily 10 minutes of oral practice with a partner, and then they will be followed by a 1-minute timed practice test, pencil and paper. Once a week, the students are to take a 2-minute timed assessment over the math facts they have learned during the week, and it is this data that I will be using for the purposes of my data collection. The Rocket Math program is sequential and spiraling, meaning that the students only learn a few problems each day, but then they review the problems that they have learned the previous days, with the idea that they will continuously gain knowledge as they progress through the program. The hypothesis of my research is that listening to Mozart music while taking a 2-minute Rocket Math multiplication assessment will have a significant positive effect on the students' scores. The null hypothesis would be the opposite, and that states that the listening to Mozart music during the 2-minute Rocket Math multiplication assessment will have no significant effect on the students' scores. The method that I propose doing this research with will require having one group of students who will be listening to ocean waves. Then there will be a second group of students who will be listening to the Mozart Piano Sonata. It's actually D major K488 specifically because that is the one that was used in the first research project. Then there will be a control group that consists of students taking math fact fluency assessments in silence. So in silence, that would mean the normal classroom sounds that would be in a classroom. The independent variables are the background sound of ocean waves and the Mozart music. The dependent variables will be the scores from the timed multiplication assessments. The materials that will be needed will be the Rocket Math. Many schools have access to this already. You can just make copies. If not, you can go to the Rocket Math website and find it. They'll also have access to their daily practice questions, the answer key for their individual's partner, and then you'll need to have a CD player or an MP3 player in order to play the sounds, and then a timer to time their assessments. The participants are going to be taking from Paulette Elementary School. There's going to be a total of 61 third grade students. This is in Rural County, Tennessee, and Union County, Tennessee. And this is a convenience cluster sample based on homogeneous groupings, which means that it is convenient for me to use these particular students. They are already pre-clustered into groups of homerooms. So each participant is going to be given 12 multiple fact assessments of 2 minutes, and this will be happening over the course of the semester. And then they will receive the same mathematics instruction, the same teacher, the same assignments, the same homework. So everything within the classroom should be the same for the 3 separate classes. Then they have been randomly assigned by a coin toss. The assessments are going to be given on Fridays, and it's going to be administered in the classroom. The silence group is going to take their test with only the background noise of the classroom, and then the ocean group and then the Mozart group will take their test listening to their respective background sound. In order to perform analysis on this research, I will be collecting the data from their 2-minute assessments. This is a quantitative type of assessment, and that means that it is numeric, and I'll be collecting numeric data as opposed to qualitative, where I would be using words. For comparative purposes, I'm going to use the mean score, which is basically an average, of the 12 assessments used across the 3 groups for central tendency. I'm going to use a t-test to test for independent means, and this is to determine if there will be a difference between the groups. The 2 groups that have sound being played compared to the group that has no sound, or that is testing in silence. There are some limitations. One of the limitations is that the participants are not randomly selected. That does kind of generalize, or does decreases the ability that I am to generalize these results to the population at large. However, that has been controlled for by random assignment. And then an extraneous variable that has not been accounted for is that students may indeed study their multiplication facts outside of their classroom, which would increase their scores on the test. However, having these participants randomly assigned, that will cover and account for that extraneous variable. It would confound the study by having those extraneous variables, but using the random assignment takes that confounding away from the study so that it can still be reliable and valid. So in conclusion, the Mozart effect is there's a number of issues that are surrounding this phenomenon, and it is worthy of further investigation. There is a link between Mozart music and the increase of cognitive functioning, but it's not clearly understood. And so this particular investigation is going to seek to add to that growing depth of knowledge to see if there really is indeed a connection between listening to Mozart music and increasing IQ. So I'm going to be using third graders for this experiment. Are there any questions?
How did you decide what statistical test to use?
That's a really good question. I had started with the ANOVA because it was going to be comparing multiple groups, but then I decided the t-test would be best because I'm actually only comparing 2 groups. Thank you. Any other questions?
Do you think that other types of music besides Mozart would have produce the same effect?
This is very early in the study, and so I can't answer that fully, but ideally that we would study Mozart music and its effect, and then we would study other types of music to see if there was also a connection between those. Thank you for those questions. Anything else? All right, well, thank you very much for being here, and I appreciate my colleagues for coming to join me and listening to me present my research.